A young human spent 20 years enduring hardships and finally became an officer in the Demon Lord's army, only to have his secret discovered by a young maid. Aiku is human, but his grandfather was Ronbeku, a great magician in the Demon Lord's army. As the grandson of a great magician, Aiku's power is as you would expect. With just one brigade, he captured a city in less than a week. He then went alone to the Lord's room and offered 3 choices: surrender and be captured, commit suicide, or escape while he admired the view from the window. Unfortunately, the Lord chose none of these and attacked Aiku instead. Without surprise, Aiku knocked him out with a powerful spell, but then ordered his men to treat the Lord and the surrendered soldiers. Aiku's actions were all monitored by his direct superior through a crystal ball, who was very pleased with his performance. However, Aiku immediately cast a barrier spell in the room to create a protective shield. Despite being in the Demon Lord's army for many years, Aiku, being human, could never get used to the brutality of war. He removed his mask, revealing his true identity. Aiku's master was the great magician Ronbeku, who understood the high civilization that once existed in this world. On a whim, he had picked up Aiku as a baby and raised him, teaching him knowledge and magic. His last words to Aiku were a warning not to reveal the lost civilization, as it would bring disaster. He also instructed Aiku never to remove his mask and robe. If his true identity were exposed, the Demon Lord would never spare him. Thus, these 20 years had been very tough for Aiku. Fortunately, no one could see his true face in the room protected by the barrier. Then, he looked down to see a terrified young maid who realized she had been discovered, knelt down begging for mercy, and promised she saw nothing, only to knock herself unconscious when she looked up. Aiku, seeing tears on her face, felt like crying himself as his secret of 20 years was so easily discovered. Then, hearing his subordinates outside, he had to put the mask back on and check the situation. A half-beast subordinate thought there were too many human survivors from the war. Aiku made up an excuse, saying it didn't matter since the current Demon Lord valued results, and if all humans were killed, who would pay taxes? This was a trade city after all. Who would handle the trade if no humans were left? The half-beast was convinced. Later, a group of humans stopped them, asking how much tax they would have to pay to the Demon Lord's army. Aiku surprisingly said it would be the same as before, delighting the humans. He added that anyone who dared resist the Demon Lord's army would be punished, no matter how many. After showing off, he disappeared on the spot and reappeared in a small dark room with a huge magic puppet behind him. Fortunately, Aiku reacted quickly and dodged. With no other choice, Aiku wielded his magic wand and quickly destroyed the puppet with magic. His direct superior was watching everything from the side. This was just a trial given to him last time. This person is Serufiro, the commander of the 7th Legion of the Demon Lord's army, and the only demon who knows Aiku's secret. Aiku couldn't help but complain, asking the commander to call him in a normal way next time, then prepared to report on the trade city of Aruseno. However, Serufiro said she already knew about it. This time, Aiku was called in because the Demon Lord wanted to meet him, probably curious about how he conquered Aruseno in just a week. With no choice, Aiku had to go to the Demon Lord's castle with Serufiro. Meanwhile, the young maid woke up. The room was enveloped by a barrier, and she couldn't get out. She noticed food and a note prepared on the table by Aiku, asking her to stay put. Unfortunately, the maid couldn't read, but she still grabbed the food and devoured it. Aiku and Serufiro arrived at the Demon Lord's castle, surrounded by a dense miasma. As a human, Aiku instinctively felt uncomfortable. There were 2 guards at the entrance checking everyone entering the castle. Aiku quickly asked Serufiro what to do. Serufiro reassured him and said he would handle it, then blew a breath towards Aiku, surrounding him with dense magic power. The guards remarked, fitting for Ronbeku's grandson. Aiku was surprised his grandfather was still so famous after his death. As Ronbeku's grandson, Aiku entered the Demon Lord's castle smoothly and walked through a long corridor to the meeting hall. Aiku was nervous. He had heard of the current Demon Lord's reputation, named Dairo Kuten, who had overturned the demons' losing streak against humans in just one battle. Known as the King of Demons and the strongest man, he was ruthless and cold, killing the incompetent without discrimination. Conversely, If he saw potential, he would promote them regardless of their magic or skills. This personality brought reform to the demon army, uniting the often infighting demons. Thinking about meeting him, Aiku felt nervous yet excited. Unexpectedly, the legendary strongest man turned out to be a beautiful girl. The demon lord had indeed called Aiku because of Aruseno. Aiku humbly stated it was all Serufiro's arrangement. The demon lord seemed to imply something, praising Aiku for being truly humble, just like a human. Fortunately, Serufiro quickly intervened, mentioning he was Ranbeku's grandson. The demon lord then understood, noting it was not strange for Ranbeku's grandson to be meticulous. She asked if that was why Aiku did not kill the residents or punish the leaders, contributing Aruseno almost bloodlessly. Aiku knew this was the demon lord's test and seized the chance to defend himself, stating that humans fear terror but do not submit to it. Thus, instead of killing the human rulers and having demons rule, it was better to let humans continue ruling to maintain their productivity, which was more beneficial for the demon army. He also mentioned his deceased grandfather, admitting this was Ranbeku's theory. Although they only exchanged a few words, Aiku had a vague idea that the demon lord, like Ranbeku, knew about the civilizations that existed in the past. She probably used that knowledge to bring reforms to the demon army. The demon lord teleported in front of Aiku and said he was different from other demons. She was curious about his true appearance under the mask. After saying this, she left with her subordinates. Aiku finally breathed a sigh of relief. He had been extremely nervous, especially since the demon lord had noticed his mask. However, Serufiro comforted him, saying the demon lord intended to reward him. When Aiku returned to the room, the young maid had eaten, drunk, and was sound asleep. She immediately knelt down upon noticing Aiku's return, begging for her life and promising to do anything. Aiku wasn't a murderer and wouldn't kill to silence someone. He first asked the maid for her name. Slaves were called by numbers, and she was the 13th, but her mother always called her Sati. Sati knew Aiku's big secret, and even though he couldn't let her go, he decided to keep her as his maid. Upon learning she was spared, Sati hugged Aiku tightly. Later, Aiku became the lord of Ibanirasu, a reward from the demon lord. It was a town further south than Aruseno, and would become the front line of the war. Although small, it was very important to the demon army. Aiku's duty was to protect the town and double the tax revenue. This was more of a punishment than a reward, given the ongoing human and demon conflicts. Even maintaining taxes was difficult. But to avoid arousing the demon lord's suspicion, he had to take on the task. His first order was to repair the town walls, initially planned for 6 months, within 1 month. This meant relying not only on human labor, but also on the demon army. They worked in shifts every 8 hours, continuing 24 hours a day, and were given bonuses to increase motivation. The half-orc subordinates were amazed by Aiku's intelligence, finally understanding why he was considered a key member of the demon army. Besides intelligence, Aiku's power was formidable. With a wave of his magic wand, a boulder instantly turned to dust. The half-orcs saw a bright future with their leader, believing he could become the next demon lord. The battle between the Demon King's army and humanity has reached an intense stage. Currently, the humans are at a disadvantage. To break the deadlock, Rogiaria is considering forming an alliance with neighboring countries. Upon hearing his subordinates' report, the Demon King remains unflustered. It is now time for that person to step in. Meanwhile, Aiku is diligently handling official duties, gratefully receiving tea brought by a newly recruited human maid. On the other side, the leader of the human White Rose Knights, Arisu, is summoned by the lord of the castle. The lord wants her to lead troops to recapture Ibanirasu, the small town now under Aiku's control. In a small town in Rogiaria, there is a peaceful scene. A street hustler is performing tricks and cheating people out of their money. If you guess which cup the bead is under, you can win money. Sati immediately points to the middle cup, but she lacks the money to bet. The hustler, eyeing her voluptuously, lewdly suggests betting with something else. Before he can reveal the answer, all the cups start floating, revealing no bead underneath. The crowd quickly realizes his deceit and demands their money back. Sati is then picked up by Aiku, who has reverted to his human attire, no longer hiding behind a mask and robe. They are in the town to gather intelligence and confirm that the rumors of the prince's alliance are true. This ancient pact, which has been enacted 3 times before, always results in the Demon King's forces retreating when the demon tribe attacks and the alliance members join forces. Seeing Sati's worried expression, Aiku can't help but laugh. Although she is human, she worries about the demons. In the human world, slaves remain slaves for life and are discarded like the children in the alleys if abandoned by their masters. Aiku comforts Sati by patting her head, reassuring her that the current Demon King is the strongest and wisest ever, so there is no need to worry. As they prepare to leave, the swindler who Sati exposed calls out to them, angry and seeking revenge with a strong man beside him, threatening violence unless compensated with money or bodily payment. Aiku looks around, sees no one, and uses ice magic to freeze the strong man's feet, while ice spikes hang threateningly above the swindler. The swindler, unable to move, quickly begs for mercy. Aiku then takes the opportunity to ask him about the town's military activities and why the soldiers seem so anxious. The swindler honestly replies that he heard about the prince's alliance formed to fight the demon tribe, and the Rogiaria army wants to act before the alliance to take revenge on the demons. Aiku immediately understands that acting first would demonstrate Rogiaria's presence to other nations, gaining an advantage at the prince's conference and enhancing their post-war influence. However, defeat would severely weaken Rogiaria's position. They plan to attack Ibanirasu, which Aiku governs, and is the weakest in defense. After hearing this, Aiku leaves without caring about the swindler and his companion. Back in his office, his loyal subordinate Ririsu visits. She immediately questions who the little maid beside Aiku is. The maid respectfully introduces herself, but Ririsu shows no interest and even attempts to take her position, leading to an argument between them. By evening, the White Rose Knights indeed arrive outside Ibanirasu. The soldiers prepare, setting up catapults. As the leader commands the attack, the ground suddenly splits open, releasing countless skeleton soldiers, followed by goblins above and orcs surrounding them from behind. The knights fall into the demon's ambush. The commander orders a retreat upon realizing the danger. This successful ambush is thanks to Aiku scouting the enemy. While his half-beast subordinate praises him, an arrow suddenly hits Aiku from behind, and he collapses. That night, the commander receives news of the knights' defeat and immediately orders the imprisonment of their leader, Arisu, despite knowing it would affect the soldiers' morale. He disregards this, caring only about his reputation before the king. Meanwhile, Aiku quickly recovers to find his beautiful superior, Serufiro, lying beside him, provocatively misstating their interaction. Aiku is speechless, remembering nothing. Serufiro saved him and reminds him that this battle caused no human casualties, which might arouse suspicion from the Demon King. Aiku remains committed to coexistence between humans and demons. After treating Aiku's wounds, Serufiro leaves. Aiku ponders over the arrow, suspecting an intruder or spy. Hearing noise outside, he dons his mask and robe. Indeed, Sati and Ririsu arrive, fighting over Aiku. Eventually, Ririsu is thrown out by the half-beast subordinate. Aiku asks him to investigate where the imprisoned leader of the attacking knights, Arisu, is located. After learning her location, Aiku immediately takes Ririsu to confirm something with her in person. Sneaking into a prison should have been a quiet affair, but with Ririsu involved, discretion was impossible. Ririsu knocked out the guards, leading Aiku inside, and subdued more guards to get the keys to the top floor. Before they could ascend, other soldiers were alerted and chased after them. Ririsu volunteered to cover their retreat and handed the keys to Aiku. Before leaving, Aiku reminded her to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Despite agreeing, Ririsu still roughed up the soldiers. Aiku pretended not to notice and quickly reached the top floor to open Arisu's cell, only to find it empty. Suddenly, a figure with a dagger attacked him. Aiku dodged and subdued Arisu quickly. His purpose was not to harm her, but to ask if she was behind the assassin sent to Ibanirasu to kill him. He wanted to confirm if the one who shot at him was under Arisu's command. Arisu avoided the question, instead asking if Aiku was a real demon. Before Aiku could respond, soldiers caught up to them, and Arisu held her dagger to his neck, asking more directly, "Are you human?" Aiku used all his effort to sneak into the prison just to ask Alice a question, only to be taken hostage by her. Aris then questioned if he was human. Amid their standoff, soldiers were close to reaching them. Ike then used his psychic control to dull everyone's senses and launched a non-lethal attack to repel the soldiers. Unexpectedly, Eris also fell down. Ike quickly teleported to catch her and introduced himself as the captain of the undead brigade of the demon army, clarifying he couldn't be human. Humans couldn't possibly be officers in the demon army. He then asked Eris again if she had sent assassins to kill him during battle. Eris, a kingdom knight unwilling to speak with demons, refused to answer. Ike pinned her against the wall and used mind-reading magic. Eris caught them, demanding Ike do the same to her. Ike, having already gotten his answer, turned and left, leaving Eris displeased. Despite their enmity, Ike had not killed her, and even praised her clear and upright heart. Out of pity for humans, Ike kindly advised Eris not to be too discouraged, but to focus on strategies for after her defeat. He then returned with Eris, who was reluctant to leave, missing her rare chance to be alone with Ike. However, Ike, uninterested, stepped into the portal to see his maid and showed her the rice he brought from the capital, Rasas. The Demon King had ordered the city's taxes doubled. Since Evanlias was an agricultural city, switching to rice, which had much higher productivity than wheat, would greatly increase harvests and reduce the need for farmers. These people could then work in production, like weapon or brick making, increasing services like cooking. This would naturally enrich the nation. Ike simplified it for Shati. They could eat their fill and collect lots of taxes. Shati immediately praised her master. However, Ike was unclear on how to cook the rice and left the problem to Shati, as he had another issue to address. He then gathered his group to find out who had shot at him before. It is now known that the arrow is from enemy forces, but Arisu, the leader of the White Rose Knights, was not involved. This means someone impersonated the White Rose Knights to shoot the arrow at him. The worst possibility is that there is a traitor within their brigade. Ike used mind-reading magic on all the members, first seeing the half-orc beside him, who was infatuated with Ike, admiring his greatness. Ike could barely stand to look, but he carefully distinguished the thoughts of others. Sure enough, one goblin seemed very guilty. Ike teleported in front of him and directly asked if he was a spy. Later, Ike went to see Serufiro, who was bathing at the time and did not shy away from being naked in front of Ike. Guessing there was a traitor in Ike's group and that Ike came to catch him, she asked who it was. Surprisingly, it was the vice captain of the 7th Legion, the one-eyed goblin Jesu, a veteran of many battles. Serufiro was not surprised and suggested that Ike make him pay the appropriate price. On the other side, Jesu, knowing Ike had gone to see leader Serufiro, got a bit panicked. He repeatedly confirmed with his subordinates that they really hit him that day. His subordinates affirmed it. Then, another subordinate reported that they couldn't contact the undercover sent to the undead brigade, and that Ike was coming alone. Despite feeling anxious, the vice captain had to pretend to be calm and went to the appointment with a group of his men. They stopped beating around the bush, openly admitting to trying to kill Ike, who declared he was there to clean house. The vice captain laughed. "Just you alone?" As his men surrounded Ike, an explosion suddenly erupted behind them, engulfing the sky in flames and raining fireballs, destroying the city. It turned out the cleanup wasn't by Ike, but by leader Serufiro herself. She remembered Ike was also below after unleashing her power, but it didn't matter since he wouldn't be harmed. Serufiro's subordinates took care of the goblins while Ike confronted Jesu, offering him two choices: surrender now or wait until he lost everything. Jesu didn't want either option. Just as he tried to escape using his men as shields, he actually managed to flee because he had set up secret passages in the city earlier. The vice captain reached the forest outside the city via the secret passage, nearly getting hit by a fireball the next second. Ike had placed a familiar on Jesu, allowing him to follow directly. Angered and embarrassed, the deputy leader attacked Ike, who easily blocked the attack and cast a spell that sent Jesu flying into a tree. Ike then used a binding spell to tie him up. It was the first time seeing someone use a binding play on a goblin. At this point, Jesu had no choice but to surrender, and then offered Ike an olive branch, asking if he wanted to collaborate to overtake the Demon Lord's army. Given the long-lasting war between demons and humans, despite being demons who could enjoy tormenting humans, the current Demon Lord forbade needless killing, causing dissatisfaction among many in his army. However, this did not include their 7th Legion's leader, Serufiro. Jesu, seeing Aiku as remarkably intelligent and capable, thought they could work together, but he did not know Aiku was human. Unsurprised by Aiku's refusal, Jizu had only intended to distract Aiku to launch a surprise attack. However, Aiku dodged and then read Jizu's mind just as the leader, Serufiro, arrived. She demanded that Jizu reveal his accomplices. Serufiro was less gentle than Aiku, but before Jizu could do anything, he showed signs of poisoning, appearing in severe pain. The spell to read his mind was also ineffective, likely to prevent Jizu from naming his accomplices. Despite this, hearing Serufiro's promise to help him seek revenge, Jizu used his last breath to name the person involved. Soon after, Serufiro and Aiku were summoned by the Demon Lord. It turned out that the mastermind behind this plot was a significant figure, the leader of the Third Legion, whose ultimate goal was to behead the Demon Lord himself. After hearing this, the Demon Lord was indifferent and directly asked what the intention was behind the Third Legion's leader standing behind Aiku and Serufiro. The greatest traitor in the Demon King's army turned out not to be Aiku, the human, but Basteo, the commander of the Third Legion. Basteo, playing the villain, accused first by preemptively telling the Demon King that Aiku and Serufiro had killed the vice commander of the 7th Legion, framing himself as a victim to undermine him and seize control of his 3rd Legion. Serufiro nearly started a fight with Basteo on the spot, but was stopped by the Demon King. The wise Demon King had already seen through the lies, knowing Basteo was dishonest. Although Serufiro was indeed loyal, he was expected to take responsibility for his subordinates' misconduct. According to military law, both parties were to be punished. Just as both were prepared to accept their punishment, the Demon King halted the proceedings, considering the ongoing war with humans and the significant impact of losing 2 commanders. However, he couldn't let the issue slide, so he decided they should duel, with the victor being justified. The duel involved controlling magical creatures called puppet soldiers. The 2 commanders, acting solely as strategists and not direct combatants, would compete to see who could eliminate the opponent's puppet soldiers first. The loser would die instantly, essentially testing their command skills. The Demon King even allowed for proxies, so Serufiro chose Aiku to fight on his behalf. Aiku was bewildered and felt the enormous responsibility of Serufiro's life weighing on him. Serufiro, confident in Aiku's superior command abilities, entrusted his life to him, leaving Aiku no choice but to accept the heavy task and do his best to win. Aiku then examined the puppet soldiers, which were identical in capabilities, emphasizing the reliance on the commander's strategic skills. Weapons were freely chosen. After reviewing, Aiku pondered strategies and sought advice from Sati, who knew nothing about combat and preferred to solve problems over tea. However, inspired by Sati's preference for using a broom in a fight, Aiku considered maintaining a distance as a key to victory, though he expected his opponent to think similarly. Sati recalled a Demon Lord mentioning the effectiveness of crossbows. While Aiku recognized the advantages of crossbows, he felt something stronger was needed: a rifle. Sati, unfamiliar with such a weapon, listened as Aiku explained its superior power and range for unilateral attacks from hundreds of meters away. They approached Serufiro, the 7th Legion's commander and a master alchemist, for help. However, Serufiro, having never seen such a weapon, was indifferent and instead invited Aiku to play in the water. "Aiku, if you won't play, let me do it." On the other side, Basteo also received intelligence that Serufiro had Aiku replace him in the battle. However, Basteo did not underestimate his opponent, just because he was only a brigade commander. He planned to use the sword in his hand as his weapon, made from the teeth of a black dragon, capable of slicing through iron like mud. He ordered his subordinates to mass-produce it, not only in the quantities needed for the puppet soldiers, but even more. Another subordinate came to report that victory was imminent for Lord Basteo. Aiku and his group were completely unaware of this. It seemed Aiku was genuinely playing in the water with his elder sister. Just as he emerged, he encountered the Demon King and hastily knelt down, not even dressed. Aiku was hoping to be lucky since he wasn't wearing a mask and thought the Demon King wouldn't recognize him. However, the Demon King handed him a large package which, upon opening, turned out to be the very rifle he needed. The Demon King even called out his name and told him no longer to hide. Ranbeku had already told her the truth a long time ago. She hadn't exposed him because she needed Aiku's help to fulfill her wish. Despite the Demon King's great power, it was still not enough. She needed someone willing to fight for her and help build the world she envisioned. Aiku was one of her chosen ones. With the Demon King saying so, Aiku naturally responded immediately. After the Demon King left, he took the rifle to find Serufiro. Just a rifle wasn't enough. He also had Serufiro help make some bullets. Seeing Serufiro's nonchalant demeanor, Aiku felt conflicted, knowing that if he lost, it was Serufiro who would die. Before the bullets were even completed, an explosion occurred elsewhere, a non-magical one, as Aiku had arranged for his subordinates to make gunpowder earlier. It seems it was successful. Aiku asked Serufiro to help make 500 lead bullets and had a beautiful subordinate prepare the gunpowder. With everyone eagerly anticipating, the day of the duel finally arrived. The demons in the audience waved their flags and cheered. The duelists were in place. Basteo's puppet soldiers were fully armed, each holding different weapons. Aiku's puppet soldiers still looked the same, but now they held very sturdy-looking shields. Basteo began to boast loudly, putting his head on his neck and declaring that they would surely lose. Aiku remained non-committal, recognizing that the armor on the opposing puppet soldiers was made of Damascus steel, a high-grade metal capable of deflecting arrows and resisting spears, also a gift from the Demon King. Basteo thought the Demon King wanted him to win, not knowing that the Demon King had directly given Aiku firearms. Lord, times have changed. Aiku was unsure if the Demon King wanted a fair fight or was testing his own strength. He planned to win first, then ask for clarity. Finally, the duel officially began. Basteo ordered his puppet soldiers to fire arrows first. Aiku's puppet soldiers immediately raised their shields to defend, but some were still hit. Meanwhile, Basteo's puppet soldiers charged directly into the enemy camp. The situation was almost completely one-sided. Aiku's puppet soldiers had no offensive capabilities, and several quickly fell. However, with a gunshot, the tide of the battle instantly turned. It seems that Damascus steel could not withstand rifle fire after all. The puppet soldiers, well-trained, retreated after their shots to reload and were replaced by a fresh batch. The battlefield was filled with gunfire. Basteo's puppet soldiers were powerless to resist and fell one by one, disappearing on the spot. It was a total rout. The Demon King then approached the battlefield and offered Basteo two choices: commit suicide to preserve his honor, or die by her hand. Basteo made a third choice. His subordinates, already prepared, took a cue from him and fired a cold arrow at the Demon King's back. The Demon King caught it barehanded, but unexpectedly, the arrowhead was attached to an explosive ball. An explosion erupted at the Demon King's location, followed by consecutive explosions in the spectator stands. The unprepared demons were blown apart instantly. It turns out Basteo had planned a rebellion today. With the Demon King dead, he stood on the platform, raised his own head, and declared himself the new Demon King from today.